What's going on? What's popping? I have Kacia with me, and she's gonna drop a couple nuggets on you guys. The topic, you see it right below. We're gonna be talking about sex. I know it could be uncomfortable, especially in church, the church culture. But honestly, to keep it real with you, God has created sex. He's created us to desire it, to want it, and to be passionate about it. In the proper context of marriage, it becomes distorted. It becomes sin when we do it outside of it. I know for me, I've fallen short in that, losing my virginity. Kacia's gonna tell her story. I've fallen short of just having sex outside of marriage. I'm no longer active in that. I've repented, been celibate for about a few years now. And so we're just gonna be talking about it and talking through it. So Kacia, welcome on the channel. Just a little bit of the background. I was on Facebook and I seen her post about her remaining celibate for about like 2 years now. And I just wanted to make a video so we can just have her to share her story to impact other people. So tell us about your journey being celibate right now.
I've been celibate for 2 years.
Okay.
I made the decision because I had a past of, falling into sexual sin.
Yeah.
And I think in that, when I started to really seek after God, He started to give me clarity on what He designed sex for and what He designed it for, which was ultimately for His glory. But when we, do it out of context, it, causes us to miss what the beauty of it was originally for. So, yeah.
Wow. I like how you said that, just like, glorifying God, like, sex does glorify God in marriage because that's how God created it.
Right.
And it's crazy how the world has kind of retrieved sex and kind of waving the flag of the pride of man and women, just like, this is what true sex is, this is what the design for it is. And you see the brokenness in it. So many marriages, so many relationships broken, kids being separated from families because, sex before marriage, and the effects and the causes and the pain that I've experienced. I know that you probably experienced. And even speaking about pain, tell us a little bit about the pain that you've experienced in the process of having sex, then not having sex, being celibate, like the pain of both sides of the spectrum, or the emotions that you've experienced during those times.
So I grew up in church, and I got the purity talk, about waiting until marriage, waiting for your husband.
Yeah.
And I think in that was a goal of mine, to wait until marriage. But as I, went to high school and things like that, and I had friends who, weren't abstaining, and, they had boyfriends, and I wanted to get in a relationship, and it seemed like that's what men liked. They wanted to have sex, and they gravitated toward the girls who were willing to have sex. And I, was a virgin, and so I felt like I was less attractive to men because, I wasn't willing to do that yet. So in that, I think I grew a little bit insecure of the fact that I was trying to wait until marriage. So in that, I decided to lose my virginity, and when I did, I kind of created a cycle of just getting into relationships that were merely based on sex, and in that, it kind of distorted my view of, the beauty of keeping your virginity, because everyone around me was just doing it. So I'm like, it's just something to do.
Real.
Like, there's no consequences. Like, there's no, what's the issue? Everybody's doing it, so why not? Type of thing. And so as I continued on into those relationships, I kind of accumulated a lot of baggage that I didn't realize were, soul ties that I was creating. And so, yeah.
Dang. Yeah, so through that journey, what's through the journey of just being celibate, like how do you face all those challenges and those temptations that are thrown at you now? Like, I know that it hasn't stopped. Like, how did the temptations now, like what do you do? Like, what's your responses?
I think keeping my relationship with God as number one is the biggest thing, because without Him, I would not have been able to, abstain for this long. Obviously, I'm not doing it in my own strength.
That's real.
Because
Amen.
He's graced me to do it, and so I feel like that is the number one thing. But also, just remembering that I'm more than just my body. Like, there's other things to me besides the fact that I'm capable of having sex. And I think that's something that I really needed to know for myself. And so in that, when I'm going through and I'm getting tempted, just remembering, that there's more to me than just, being a notch on someone's belt or someone that they can conquer. Like I'm a person who has purpose, and there's more to me than just giving away my body. And so I think in that's kept me.
Wow. And that's crazy that you say that, of just, you're not a trophy, you're not a toy. And so many women are represented as that, like, you're just an object, you're just to make me feel good. And you are this toy that I can play with. Right. And when I'm done with you, I'm gonna put you back on the shelf. I'm gonna put you back on the tote and put the top over it, close it, and then put it under the bed, and then go on to the next thing. And so just even hearing you say that, it kind of hurts me, because there's like so many women that I have hurt, and not only that, but other women out there. Maybe you're watching and you've been hurt, and you've experienced the pain of being used as a toy. And so I think for me, just hearing you talk about it, about the pain, specifically when it comes to sex outside of marriage, just how God doesn't want that. Right. God doesn't want that design for people to walk in, continue in. And so even the sin of that, the effects of sin is obviously the pain and the hurt and all this stuff that God Himself did not design or want for us. And so please talk to us about your perspective a little bit about on sex. Like, what is your perspective on sex? Like, where do you come from that lens when it comes to sex?
Well, for one, I think it's beautiful. I don't think there's any shame in having sexual desire, because innately we were created to be sexual beings. Right. So there should be no shame in that. And I think, especially if you've grown up in church, there's been kind of like this stigma about not talking too deeply about sex. But it was created for God. Everything created by God was made for God. So it's not something that we should feel ashamed about. I think the only time it gets, kind of shaky is when you're doing it out of context, of course. And I think it's important to remember, that if we're going to, share in something like that, it has to be kept in, God's original context for it. And so, yeah.
Wow. That speaks volumes. So, like, even through this process of you being celibate, what would you give, like, advice to other young women or even older women as well, trying to come out of that, coming out of, having sex outside of the context of marriage and that particular sin? Like, what would you give them as advice and nuggets? And what would you give to the people that are in the process of making that decision, like putting the stake in the ground, I'm going to remain celibate, and remaining celibate, like those two playing fields? Like, what would be your advice?
For one, just not to be ashamed of the fact that you have sexual desire. I feel like we shouldn't let ourselves feel so ashamed that we're silent about it. I know one big thing that has kept me is having accountability partners. I have, a couple friends that I'm okay with being honest, like when I fall and I, fall into something that I knew I wasn't, planning on doing, but I am okay with sharing that with them. And, they've been there to just encourage me to keep walking, in my decision, and not allowing that, not allowing me to get too far into that, but, picking me back up and saying like, hey, no, you made this decision. God covers you no matter what, even if you've fallen, like He's still going to be there. to, keep you going. And so that's been a big thing for me. And if you are, deciding that you may want to, I think seeking after God and like seeking after His original plan for this, it gives you perspective, and it gives you like a why for why you're doing it. And also just remembering that you're more than just your body. You're not just here to have sex. Like there's obviously more things to you than just giving away your body. And so, yeah.
Wow, that's so good. What would you give like some other advice when it comes to, sex outside of marriage? What was some of the things that kind of tormented you, or maybe some things that you're going through now of your past? Like, how do you continue to move forward despite your past decisions and mistakes? Like, how do you do that?
So I think a lot of the time when I was having sex in relationships, it was because I felt like I was lacking in other areas. Like maybe, I wasn't smart enough or pretty enough or something like that. And so I kind of feel like it's kind of made me be introspective and look at myself and say, hey, what are some insecurities that you have that will make you feel like all you have to offer is your body? And so really working on those things and just, trying to become, the best version of myself outside of the fact of, that I have my body to give away. Like just not focusing on that and focusing on other things, like my character, things like that. And so, yeah.
Wow. I love that. I think for me, this is some of the things that you've said already just have, speaks to me. And I hope this video has impacted you through this process of just remaining pure and celibate before the Lord and walking in that, being pure before God. For me, just kind of listening to you, I always thought like, I needed to stay pure because this is what needed to be done. Like, a rule book, like, okay, I checked that off, we're Gucci, I'm on to the next thing. And so for me, it wasn't because I love God. It wasn't because I didn't love God, I didn't love myself, I didn't love the other person, so I would dishonor them, and obviously I would dishonor God, and I would automatically dishonor someone else. And so many other women that fallen short in those areas. And so that speaks a lot. And so what's some of the books that you've been reading, or even other people that have been pouring in your life during that process and the process you're in now of being celibate? Like what's some of the other stuff that you get encouragement from?
I watch a lot of YouTube. I look up, just sermons, because I feel like there's not a lot of women that I know of who are walking in this faithfully, and so sometimes it gets a little lonely, and so you need encouragement. And so if I can't get it, one-on-one, I will, look on YouTube and search up certain things. But I'm reading a book called God Loves Sex right now. It's basically just talking about the design for, God's purpose and sexual desire and stuff like that. And so I think it's by Dan B. Allender.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Wow. I'm gonna have to check out that book. Was there anything else that you wanted to share, maybe that might have been on your heart that you didn't have before?
No, I don't think.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If this video has impacted you in any way, please share, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you thought about it, your thoughts. Hope to see you soon. This is Kacia. My name is Jordan. Thank you for tuning in. See you guys next time. Peace.
Oh my gosh.
Hey. You did your